Thank you everyone for joining. We've got myself, Keith, Katie is here as well, as is Don, who you might see looking like he's in San Francisco, utilizing my name, but he's still here in spirit.
Yeah.
You'll hear from him occasionally. This is the second business succession series that we're going to be hosting, the first virtual one. Really appreciate your feedback on the first one. We'll be doing another one in person in December. Keith will talk about that in a little bit. But please, feedback for this one is greatly appreciated too. Today, we're going to talk about assessing your business value, attractiveness, and readiness. And we're fortunate to have a excellent partner here, Mr. Jeffrey Cates from the Founders Group, who's owner of JK Consulting, specializes in workouts and turnarounds. He's a CFO and specializes in M&A. So this is his world here, and he's got a lot of experience, and we're really excited to have him give us a talk here, and hopefully we'll get a lot of really good information from it, or I know we'll get a lot of really good information from it. Don, you want to chime in here and
Yeah.
lead off to Jeff?
Yeah. Welcome everybody. What did we call this? A webinar?
Yeah, there we go. The Zoom.
Yeah, we'll call it a webinar. So this is our first one. We're excited about presenting this. We had very good attendance at the very first succession series. This is part 2 of part 5. And we're elated to have a wonderful guest here, Jeff Cates, on board with us. We just completed a case with him and went swimmingly well. And we did learn quite a bit additional information. As you know, also, most of you in the room, that we are continually expanding our virtual family office and the expertise that we bring into the office through Retire Right Financial Planning. And Jeff and the Founders Group is part of that. Jeff is a partner in the Founders Group, and he has years of experience. You know, he has an MBA and he has his own consulting firm, and he's a certified exit planning associate. So he has all the designations, he has all the knowledge. But more importantly, you must understand, Jeff is the ultimate professional as far as being able to help companies with their exit planning in forms of increased clarity, understanding how you get to the net cash flow number when you're selling a business, expanding market value, and expanding choices, basically. He really helps open up the arena and gives the business owner or owners quite a bit of additional background for better choices that they could make had they not gone through the process. So with that, I am going to turn the presentation over to my friend and higher handicapped associate, Jeff Cates. But if he had
we were talking about the golf course, were we?
His handicap would be 0, by the way, if we related it to his business model and his acumen for his presentation skills.
Well,
Jeff, you're up.
Thank you so much, Don. I'd like for the presentation to be over because there's nowhere to go but downhill from here now. Thank you very much for that very nice introduction. And hi, everybody. I hope, well, I know we're hopefully going to really enjoy the hour together. And I'm looking forward to talking to you today. So, listen, at the end of the day, business owners, when it comes to understanding what some of their exit options are, most often they really don't know, or they're not able to pinpoint exactly what's going on. And, you know, there's a lot to deal with here, right? You've got all the personal stuff going on from their own perspective, emotionally, financially, which is what Retire Right does, and they do it so well, you know, working with business owners to kind of get an idea about this. Today, we're talking about the business, which is more often than not always, but more often than not, a business owner's biggest asset. And it's not like it's marketable securities or cash. It's a moving, breathing organism. You've got businesses and business owners that may have 300 or more employees that they consider to be family. So when they say they have 300 employees, they realize they're feeding 300 families, and there's a lot of stress and anxiousness when it comes to the business and what that transition may look like. So, what we do at the Founders Group is we partner with companies like Dawn's and Chris's. We just focus on the business as part of an overall plan. So today we're going to really dive into how do you assess a company's value and how attractive they are and how ready they are. And I'm going to take a second and just talk a little bit about what attractiveness and readiness means. So, a company can be ready, okay? But if it's not attractive to a potential buyer, it's not going to matter. So, the company's first hurdle that they have to clear is how attractive is their business? And it doesn't have to be the most attractive, it just has to be more attractive than their competitors in the industry. It's like that joke about, two guys in a forest seeing a bear, and one of them says to the other, "Well, you're not fast enough to outrun the bear." He says, "Yeah, but I'm fast enough to outrun you." Right? So you only have to be faster than the next person to survive. But here you have to be attractive and as attractive as possible in the industry to command the value as different stakeholders look at acquiring or transitioning the business. Once you've cleared the hurdle of whether or not it's attractive, then you have to determine, okay, is my business ready to sell today? Just because it's attractive, it may not be ready. There may be some internal things, some opportunities, some threats, some risks that need to be addressed prior to considering it. So today we're going to talk about that first little step of the process, which is for us like a discovery on steroids, is how do you assess how attractive and how ready the business is to be transitioned? All right, so I would imagine it would not shock most of you to understand this statistic that 58% of business owners have absolutely no plan about how they're going to transition the business. And make no mistake, 100% of businesses are going to transition in one shape or form. All right. Then the next 31%, so 9 out of every 10 business owners at best have an informal plan. Okay. And that means, yeah, I've thought about it. And, I've had some conversations with my spouse or my advisor, but really there is no plan. Okay. So an informal plan more often than not means no plan. Only 1 out of 10 business owners has a formal written plan that's well documented and has considered all the different options and is known by all of the advisors that need to be involved in the process. So why should business owners have an exit plan? Well, I like to use the terminology exit planning or transition planning. To me, they're interchangeable. I don't like exit plan, to be honest with you. I prefer transition plan. Exit has that kind of more negative connotation to it. But, exit/transition planning, to me and to most business owners, it should be just good business planning. So you should be doing the same things regardless of whether or not you're considering transitioning to run your business. So as you prep for it, we should be working to maximize the value of the business. You also have to make sure that your business owner clients are personally and financially prepared. On the personal side, and of course, Don and his team can talk to this even better than we can, is on the personal side, there's a lot going on, right? There's emotional planning. There's obviously the financial planning. There's the estate and tax and wealth planning, insurance. All of this stuff kind of needs to be put together in one overall comprehensive plan. And then, of course, not every business owner, one of the hurdles you have to face is not every business owner is ready to say, all right, I'm done, right? It may be a stepping stone into what's next. So part of this overall personal planning is to ensure that the owner Let's plan for what's next if they plan on transitioning the business. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the 5Ds are, right? Because a lot of these exits, half of all exits are non-voluntary, which is a scary thought, right? There should at least be a plan for them. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the 5Ds are. Obviously, there's death. Disability is a scary one to talk about and to plan for. There's divorce, distress, and disagreement. Now, I'll get distress right out of the way. So my background actually happens to be in turnarounds and workouts. That's a whole different world. But hopefully, as advisors to your clients, you are in constant communication with them and really their most trusted advisor. So you may have an idea when things are starting to go south with the business or things aren't going well. And that is a time, maybe not even necessarily to start planning for the exit, but certainly to deal with the distress so that that business can be turned around. And then you come back and focus on, all right, now what does that transition look like? Maybe it's sooner rather than later because of market conditions or labor issues or whatever the case may be. But that's an important one to take care of. Disagreements. You've got multiple business owners, partners, and there's a buy-sell agreement, and things are just not working out. And what happens there? How does one take the other out? Do you sell overall? Do you sell the whole thing? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to try and minimize the conflict within the business at the business owner level. Divorce is another obvious one. Is what happens during divorce if things have not been planned for, and it becomes one of the biggest asset and part of the negotiations in a divorce. How do you handle that? Can the business support a payout to the spouse as part of any divorce settlement? And what has to be done to plan for that? Not saying that it's going to happen, but you have to plan for all the inevitables. Disability is a big one because if a client has a huge life insurance policy, but they don't pass away, and those proceeds were going to be used to fund the business or whatever you have going on, and you can't collect on that policy, what are you doing about the fact that the business owner that has been tasked with running that business for 20, 30 years strategically is now unable to perform and run the business? Is there a plan in place to cover for that? Is there a contingency plan or a succession plan? And death is an obvious one as well. What happens to the business? We've seen companies that within 60 days, the value of the business is gone after a business owner passes. Either they haven't planned for it or it's left to the spouse who is now grieving, which is a full-time job, right? And now, in addition to all the grief and all the stress and anxiousness of trying to figure out their own personal lives, they've got a business that they have to run. Or at least make sure that the key management are running it at the benefit of the surviving spouse. That's not always the case. So for us, we have a fourth prong process. Our first part of the process is really just getting to know the business owner and determining if there's a good fit there to work together, and really trying to understand what some of their issues are and gaining some clarity. Once we clear that hurdle and the business owner decides that they want to work with all of us together, then the first engagement is this review and enhancement design. Think of it as a discovery process on steroids. And Don's been through this with us. It is a very comprehensive process. In it, we do a personal and financial readiness assessment with the business owner or owners. It is not as detailed as some of the assessments that are done by wealth advisors or CPAs potentially, or other ones. It is an all-encompassing kind of very high-level personal and financial readiness assessment, because business is personal and personal is business. They're really combined. And in order to advise business owners about their business, you really have to understand what's driving them personally and what's going on in their lives outside of the business as well. So in conjunction with those personal and financial assessments, we do a set of business attractiveness and readiness assessments. And we also do a valuation. We do a calculated business valuation. One of my partners is a certified business valuator, and she does hundreds of valuations a year. And as part of our process, we come up with a range of value based on a complete two-standard business valuation with market comps for the industry that they're in and a ton of analysis that's done. What we do is we combine what the assessments have done with the valuation to kind of get an overall picture. So when we're doing the assessments, what we're trying to do is understand how can we increase the value of the business? Where's the business today? And what can we identify or areas where there's some de-risking that needs to happen, or where we can focus on either growing revenues, finding margin, gross margin for the business, and or reducing expenses. But along the line, we want to move EBITDA and hopefully increase the business multiple. So we want to really identify where those areas of risk are. What the assessments do is it helps support the numerical and financial analysis that's being done in the valuation. A lot of the assessments are qualitative. We use a program called Qualtrics. We have a set of 60 questions that we ask on the attractiveness side and about 80 questions that we ask on the readiness side. So it is a very comprehensive assessment. And for us, it's never about the first question that's on the survey. It's all the questions that come up through the dialogue that we have with business owners from that original question. So we let the conversation take us where it's going to lead us based on, the back and forth conversations that we have. What we're trying to do is really determine if the business is trading high or low. Does it command a premium in the industry, or is it performing worse than other businesses? And, the business owner would be facing taking a discount. It's going to help us understand the need for what kind of strategic planning needs to happen and help us identify what initiatives we need to implement and certainly prioritize those initiatives, right? What's most important first to help the business owner improve the business. The valuation, as I mentioned, is we're going to help understand how the business is performing relative to the industry. It's going to identify all the financial opportunities, strengths, weaknesses of what's going on. It's really a SWOT analysis on steroids, what we're doing. Excuse me, the business valuation. We also, more often than not, need that value for the personal and financial planning. All the wealth planning is what is the value of the business and what is each owner's, ownership percentage and equity in the business as it's used for maybe life insurance purposes or wealth planning purposes. So it's really important that all of that is looked at together. So our job is to just focus on the business valuation to support what you are all doing with your business owner clients. And we're going to identify a range of value, hopefully in the future, as we make improvements. So, as an example, Don, we just worked on a client, right? And the value came in at X million dollars. And we identified with an improvement of EBITDA and moving, a couple of initiatives that we felt could move the multiple a little bit, that business in 2 or 3 years can almost double in value.
And Jeff, that was a real eye opener for the client, as you could expect, because they really didn't know what to expect, and it was in this case a pleasant surprise. And now we can move forward because we were kind of stalled on a personal basis on how to do the personal planning until we got some idea of how the transition would work and what the valuations were and So it's a good process to go.
Yeah, and I want to mention there also, Don, as you know, is these owners have a really strong management team. They have got 2 very key individuals, one who's the VP of operations and the other is the CFO. And I mention this because to me, or at least in the clients that we see all the time, you'd be surprised, but that's the exception, not the norm. A lot of business owners have management, key management people helping them run the business that have grown through the ranks with them. And so over the course of 15, 20 years, they've grown in the business and maybe they started in the back. Maybe they started as, a controller and have moved up. And, there are times when the management team, um, was great for one level of the business, but as the business grows, it just outgrows the level of talent. So that's an important thing to consider. That's one of the things that's what moves multiples, not necessarily the earnings, right? But a strong management team is critical for a potential buyer to come in and assess. So when we talk about how we move the multiple to increase the value, that's some of that intangible stuff that happens that isn't reflected in any particular number. So it's not related to revenues, it's not related to earnings, but improving management increases the value of the business without a doubt. So the ultimate goal of this initial process of doing these assessments and the valuation is to really come up with an action plan on how to de-risk the business, certainly at the outset. Okay, so by doing all of these assessments, we're identifying those initiatives that need to happen both on the personal side, like maybe the business owner doesn't have an estate plan. Maybe they need some estate planning. Maybe they don't have a wealth, a great wealth plan, or it needs to be revisited. Maybe they are underinsured. Maybe they are considering long-term care policies for the owner and the spouse, or they've got parents who are just coming into that situation that they need to take care of. A lot of us are in that sandwich generation where we got to take care of parents and children. It's a lot of stress when you're managing up and down. So identifying a lot of these initiatives that need to be worked on, both personally and in the business, are critical to coming up with a plan. What we're trying to do ultimately is identify an action plan of initiatives that we prioritize with the business owner's input, of course, and sometimes with the team's input in the business, like management or employees, that says, okay, let's jump in here, here, and here, and let's attack some of those initiatives identified to de-risk the business and grow value. And we do it over a 90-day period through a series of meetings. We have a process that every week we have meetings where we assign homework to the team, we clear obstacles and remediate issues. Or there are times when the team, the owner and the team are so busy and don't have the manpower or resources to do it themselves, then we step in and actually do the initiatives ourselves or with outside, people that we bring in to support. But all these initiatives need to be worked on. And what we're doing is really every 90 days, we're checking the barometer and making sure that we are making progress. I consider it kind of like, think of it as a train leaving the station. It takes some time, takes a couple of miles to build up some steam and build up some speed. But as the train moves further away from the station, it starts to really pick up steam and chug along at a much faster pace. That's essentially what we're trying to do. So we take the valuation, we take the assessments, we combine them into one executive summary that identifies an action plan. So why is it important to understand the value of your business, right? And, it almost sounds obvious, and I don't like being Captain Obvious, but especially in times like, so we just came out of COVID where our worlds were, shook and they were turned upside down. We've gone through periods of inflation. We're going through an election where there's so much uncertainty. But understanding the value of your business kind of at all times and having a general barometer helps a business owner really plan for, what do the next 2, 3, 5 years look like? You want it to be a proactive scenario where, a business owner can, on the drop of a dime, make a decision to do whatever it is that they want to do. Think of it as selling your house, right? A lot of companies, a lot of business, a lot of homeowners, they end up staging their house before they open the doors to have people come in. Why? Because you want to make it look as pretty as possible to command the highest value. Think of this as staging your business, right? You're just staging it, and in order to stage it, you really have to know what the value is at all times. The other reason why it's really important is there are a lot of businesses, and a lot of your clients have businesses where there is some level of intellectual property or intangible goodwill to the business that is not reflected on their books. So a company with really strong policies and procedures and processes, they may not have traditional intellectual property like patents or anything, but they may run their business so well that it commands a premium versus the same business down the street. That's goodwill to the value of the company that's not on the balance sheet. So if, a lot of business brokers and some M&A groups, they'll say, okay, they take the standard is take your EBITDA and an approximate multiple. So let's say the business is earning 3 million with a multiple of 5. Your business is worth approximately 15 million. Well, that's great if you want to be anywhere from 30 to 300% wrong. And the problem with doing that is if you're the advisor saying that to the business owner and you end up being wrong, you may have lost a client, because then they come back and they say, but you told me it was this. And so it's a very dangerous way to do it. But really understanding the value and all the drivers that leads to that is really critical. The other thing that these assessments help do is differentiate what's truly driving the business owner and what's really important to them and what their values are. Just because we may think it's important to a business owner doesn't mean it is. As an example, and Don, I'll use our same client, right? These business owners are not really driven by money. Well, one is more driven than the other, I would say, but they're not really driven by money. We found out through these assessments that the business owners are really more driven by legacy and what that business can do for the community and for the employees. And sure, they're going to want to, pull value out of the business at some point, but that's not the driving factor. So unless, as advisors, we can really connect with the business owners and really understand what's driving them. And when I use the word value, it's got a double meaning: value from a monetary perspective, but their own values, what's driving them. And that's what these assessments are kind of meant to do before you dive in and jump off and come up with potential solutions that may not even be answering what the key issues are for the business owners. So really understanding what's driving them is critical. And of course, we want to understand what the risk levels are. Only then do we really start to talk about and consider what all the different options are for transition. Because it's not just one or two. There are about 10 or 11 different business options to transition for a business owner. There are internal and external options. All right, so business attractiveness and the business readiness. Okay, so for us, how we analyze this is we always ask the question, how would this business look to an independent third party? So even if a business owner has no plans on selling the business to an outside buyer, even if they're going to be transitioning to children or employees, the standard that we use is, how would somebody looking to come in and buy the business view the business? And so we do the assessments over 4 different factors. We have business factors, forecast, market, and then investor considerations. What are the owner's considerations? We do the same 4 factors for the readiness, okay? And that is, how ready is the business for a potential transition? If it had to transition today, could the business pass through due diligence? Ultimately, that's what these assessments are all about, is starting the process of getting a business owner and a business ready to pass due diligence, okay? And so we're looking at a ton of different information around the financials, the customer contracts, employee and management issues, branding, where does the company's brand sit? Marketing, does the company use forecasts and cash flows? How strong are their systems? Do they have an ERP system or a CRM system? The ERP is how they run the business. The CRM is customer relationship. So what they're doing on the front end with customers. Do they have great policies and procedures and strong processes? You're ultimately asking yourself 2 questions. Would I buy my company in its current state? And if the answer is yes, would you pay a premium or would you want a discount? So that's what we're trying to figure out right at the outset. So some of the improvements we're looking to do, like I said, are about assessing the management team, understanding the financial reporting. How strong is their financial department? A lot of companies and business owners consider that overhead, and so they place less importance on it. Now, I'm skewed because that's my background, so I admit that, but I place a lot of value in having a strong financial reporting process in place and a strong financial department in place to provide business owners with timely and accurate financial info, great metrics and reporting on different areas of the business to help the business owner strategically run the business based on great information. How strong are their processes? Do they have inventory issues? How are customer service levels? Do they have a strong sales and marketing department? Have they done any disaster planning, recovery? How quick could they be up if there was a hurricane or a tornado, which ask everybody in Florida right now how important that is after they've gone through the last month, and half their employees have lost their homes and they can't come to work. So there's a lot to think about in protecting the value of the business. Real quick on valuation, right? Some key things is the adjustment to normalize earnings. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that terminology, but in order to really assess the performance of the business, you have to normalize its earnings. If you've got 2 business owners running similar businesses, and one is putting $500,000 of personal expenses through the business and the other isn't, which is the more attractive business? Well, ultimately, it's going to be the one where the business owner is putting $500,000 of personal expenses through it. Because if they weren't there, that business would be doing that much better. So that would command a higher value. So really understanding and normalizing earnings is critical to valuation and understanding the trends. There are different approaches to value. There's the market approach where you're looking at comparisons of similar companies in similar industries, and then income and asset approaches that's based on historical income, discounted cash flows, some build-up methods with cap rates, all these kind of interesting ways to value a business. You're also looking to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of it, and as I mentioned before, understand, is there goodwill in the business that's not on the books? How much more is the business worth than what it's showing? And in most cases, there's a lot of value to customer lists, databases, data itself, systems and processes, all of this stuff. The fact that the business owner is not involved in day-to-day operations and there's a management team in place, that provides a lot more peace of mind to somebody coming in to buy the business, that they're not buying the business owner, that once they're gone, the business could potentially fail without their involvement. So yeah. So at the end of the day, we've talked about this already, but pictorially, this is really what's happening. If you increase EBITDA and you increase the multiple, you are going to increase the value of the business. So a quick example, let's say currently one of your clients is doing 2 million of EBITDA and it's currently trading at a multiple of 4. So the value today is approximately 8 million. I know that goes against what I said before about just doing it this way, but I'm just using it as an example. So the business is worth 8 million today. So if you were able to move the multiple without even moving EBITDA, it could be worth 12 million. Okay. Now let's say you find ways to increase EBITDA by $1 million. So now it's worth 3. Okay. If you didn't move the multiple and you still use the multiple of 4, it would be at that same $12 million. But if you did both, if you were able to move the EBITDA line, right, from 2 to 3 million, and you move the multiple, you have that exponential growth in value of the business. You've gone now from 8, instead of 12, you've gone to 18. That's the power of doing this with business owners and your clients, is if you work on both, you really increase the value of the business. So on some of the personal and financial readiness, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this because you're all very knowledgeable, certainly more than me even on a lot of this stuff. But on the personal factors that we're talking about, you're talking about family legacy and rewarding loyal employees. The business owners want to maintain a presence in the community. Do they want to stay involved in the business afterwards? Do they have charitable interests? Do they want to spend their time, working in charities and giving back? How are they going to fund their retirement lifestyle? We always talk about the missing math. And so for us, that's a really critical question to get through. As a quick example, if you've got a business owner client that's bringing in $500,000 a year in salaries, another half in salary, another $500,000 in distribution. Okay, so that's $1 million, and another, let's say, 500,000 in benefits and personal expenses. So all in, they're taking $1.5 million out of the business every year. Okay, let's say the business is worth 15 million. Okay. Now, after tax, they sell, let's say they get, with some good tax planning, they get 6, let's say 6, okay? At best 7, but we'll say 6, okay? At a great rate of return after tax of 6 or 7%, you're talking about $420,000 a year to live on after the fact in passive income. How do you get a business owner that's bringing in $1.5 million a year to now say, I'm going to be okay with 420,000? Unless they have a ton of other assets elsewhere, that's the wealth gap that we're dealing with. And as advisors, you see that all the time. That has to be addressed through this process. You have to solve for that wealth gap. And of course, there's the estate tax, insurance review, the financial planning. So all that has to happen at the same time. As I mentioned, this is our process at the Founders Group, how we go about it. So we place a lot of time and effort in a pre-engagement process, not even being engaged with the client. It's a matter of really taking the time to understand some of the limitations that business owners are facing as they're tossing and turning at night, and they may not be able to pinpoint exactly what's going on. They know there's something that's gnawing at them, and that they have to figure out. And so, we have that discussion early on. We then lead them to what we call the anatomy of a true start. It's a 20-minute survey, and you're going to see it in a second, actually. It's a 20-minute survey that forces a business owner to choose a left path and a right path. It may not be perfect, and it's not meant to be. It's really just meant to give a business owner a little clarity on what's bothering them, to help identify whether or not they want to go down this path. And then, of course, we come back, we look at the results of their survey, and we determine, do we want to work together? As I mentioned already, the review and enhancement design, that's this process that we're talking about today, with the assessments along with the valuation, to develop that prioritized action plan on what we're going to improve. From there, we spend the time making the improvements, by doing the enhancement initiatives over these 90-day sprints. Then and only then can we start to talk about what some of the options are for business owners. And then they decide, do they want to keep and grow the business, or do they want to transition? And if they do, when do you want to do it? How much, and to whom is that transition? What's it going to look like? So I just talked to you a little bit about the process, which is our pre-engagement process. We really want them to understand what's involved and is it a good fit? All right. What I'd like to do now, and Sharon, I don't know if you want to walk everybody through this, but we want to give you the code here for you at your own leisure tonight or whenever to take this survey, so you can kind of see kind of a little bit how we run it. So if you want to take down this number, and I believe Sharon's going to put it up in the chat as well, you're going to text that number using the code DSRRFP24. You're going to put in your name and email address, and you're going to receive a link to take the survey either by text or by email. At your convenience tonight, take that survey just to get an idea of a little bit about what Founders Group is about, and kind of how we go through that process. Reminder, this is a pre-engagement process. This isn't even the assessments. This is just for a business owner to get comfortable, just kind of how we approach this whole thing. All right. Once we're in that review and enhancement design, this is, as I mentioned, we're going to do all the different assessments and the valuation and come up with the enhancement initiative plan. We want to identify what the concerns are for the business owner, identify the opportunities, and help plan to help grow the value of the business, and allow the business owner at that point to be proactive to opportunities. We see it every day. We have business owners that come to us with an LOI in their hand, a letter of intent. It was an unsolicited letter of intent from either a competitor or a private equity group that says, we want to buy your business. And the business owner comes to you and says, I just got an offer. And they have no clue what to do next, because they may not have any understanding of what the value of the business is. They don't know if it's a good offer or not. They weren't considering it. And now what? So, this process is to help plan so that when that does happen, they're able to make that decision and understand, okay, this is how we want to proceed, as opposed to having the tail wag the dog wags the tail. So yeah, just the thing, the process is the enhancement initiatives where we do the work with your help. And then of course, that once that's done, we now take a step back, reassess where the business is after the improvements, come up with the new value. Have we completed everything that needed to be done? Maybe there are initiatives that still need to happen. You're going to identify those to a potential buyer and say, look, this is what we accomplished over the last 3 years. We recognize this is what we still need to do. So you eliminate the buyer's ability to ding the business owner in due diligence. We want to make sure we preserve every penny, because at the end of the day, the largest sum of money that a business owner is ever going to see is from the LOI. Things can only go downhill in due diligence. I think I've seen it 1 out of my 80 or so sales where the business value actually went up, because the buyers didn't realize what the true value of the business was when they were looking at the business. And when they figured it out, we figured it out with them, and we said, oh, all right, we got to revisit the offer. And they agreed, and it came up. So, but more often than not, it's going the other way. So prepping for due diligence is what the enhancement initiatives are all about. Once the decision is made to move forward, you will have already prepped the client in getting ready for that transition. Or if it's going to be an internal one, that you're handing off your most prized asset. Let's say it's to your children. Who wants to give their children a mess? And you'd be surprised at how many owners do that. So children inherit messes. if when you word it like that to parents who are, transitioning the business, they don't want to give messes to their kids. So clean up the business, even if you're going to be transitioning it internally. That's what the decision is. So I believe, Don, we did right on time there.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, were you practicing it over and over last night? What's going
This
on?
isn't my first rodeo. If I had I should have my cowboy hat on.
No, that was good. I said we get a lot of firms. It's kind of interesting to listen to you because we get a lot of firms that will come to us. And just like you said, they already have an offer, and there's no planning around anything. And as
Yeah,
you know, we need some plan, especially on the backside when we start doing the tax and estate planning. That if we already have an offer or an LOI, it's not going to work so well
it
because we
limits
don't
your
have the time
options.
frame.
Yeah, and it limits your options of what everybody can do to help the business owner.
There you go. I think that's the key, limiting your options. If you don't go through this process in a very efficient way of understanding what your options are and how to go about to improve that attractiveness and readiness, I think you're behind the eight ball. And you may think it's okay, but really, it's just good business. I know that when
Yeah,
you take in some of our clients through it, it's just good business. Their business runs better because of what you did for them, and it's even if they do nothing, they
yeah,
now have a better business and it runs better and smoother because they identified all the things that could be improved upon and things like that.
absolutely. And I just want to add one thing to that is I think it's really important that advisors and business owners understand um, how each advisor gets paid. I think it's really important that certainly from a collaboration perspective, that you understand how if you're referring to each other, how do you get paid? Um, and that's always important. But even taking that to the next level, you know, a lot of advisors lean, and it's not anybody's fault, but they lean towards a solution that is going to ensure that they get paid. And that's not always the best solution for the business owner. It helps to go through this process to really understand what the true concerns are, to be open to what the best solution is for the business owner. We made that we at Founders Group, we're very cognizant of that. We are agnostic to what the solution is, and our process was designed for that. We don't.
That's a
Yeah,
very good point that you brought up because we see it all the time because we work with, uh, you know, their council, business owners council sometimes, and everything looks like a nail because they're very focused on what they've done in the past and it doesn't change much. I mean, let's face it, a lot of us are like that. A lot of people can be like that because they just don't have the expertise and they don't do enough of these types of programs and cases and it just leads them to stay in their comfort zone, which just like you said may be okay but probably not. It probably limits the owner's options and they're really not looking out for their best interests per se.
yeah. And ultimately, it's best for everybody's practice to have that um, situation where the business owners, your best referral source is word of mouth, right? And when advisors help business owners out of jams and really help them get through the trickiest part of their life and the most stressful part, not every business owner buys and sells businesses. You have serial entrepreneurs that do it all the time, right? But for a lot of business owners, they've never been in the business of selling their business. It's brand new, and business owners don't love to admit sometimes that they're unsure because they've got 300 mouths to feed and they're stewards for all of these people and they have to be rocks, right? And so if you can help eliminate a rock or two from their backpack, you have done something that nobody else has been able to do for the business owner, is really help them. And it's just a great way to
Well, the
help
fact,
them. And
yeah, the fact that you've been through so many of it really helps us with our current clients because of the fact you've seen so much and you basically have seen it all, and so you're more broad-based by a factor of 10 than most folks that we deal with. So it's just helpful for our clients. Chris, do you have some comments to add? I wanted to bring you in here. And
Yeah, no, that was excellent and spot on. I think 9 out of 10 times it's the first sale and primarily the only sale for the client. So there's a lot of emotional issues to consider, but at the end of the day, too, people want to know that they're getting the best deal they can, things are taken care of, and they're monetizing it the most that they can. So that's good for everyone involved there, right? So Jeff, you had some excellent points, and it's a big deal. People don't take it lightly, and a lot of the clients I've worked with, they've mulled over for years, and really thought long and hard about it.
And Keith, Keith just came on board with us about a year and a half ago, and he's right on board with us here, and he's just moving into this marketplace. What's your thoughts from an advisor that's really just coming up into this marketplace, and you have actually have quite a few clients that are in this arena, but you're seeing this kind of planning for the first time probably at this level.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had clients kind of in the space without the resources available to kind of take advantage of it. So I'm learning just as much as my clients are learning, as much as everyone hopefully on this call is picking some stuff up. So it's nice that I've had some experience seeing it, but haven't really been hands-on. But now we have the resources to kind of be a little more hands-on. So it's been a fun experience.
Don, can I add something to that? Because I see this all the time. So I'm going to use an example. My wife is an audiologist. Okay, and she has 3 offices, and she's really successful at what she does. And it has nothing to do with anything other than her professionalism and her level of patient care. I bring this up because there are a lot of businesses out there that are commodity businesses. Most businesses are commodity businesses. We sell products or services, and the only way to differentiate ourselves is by the service, right? And what you provide over and above the regular commodity. So helping business owners through this and going about it in a way that puts them first, and that is the differentiator, Keith, as you're coming into this with everybody else out there. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of wealth advisors. There are thousands and thousands of lawyers and CPAs and advisors. What differentiates you, planning for the business as well as all their personal stuff and doing it in one comprehensive plan, that is a differentiator.
Thanks for bringing that up. But it's a good process, and it's going back to doing things correctly, and it's not easy, and it's very good to be having the right resources and the right framework and frame how our partners think about our clients is crazy important. So obviously they have to be comfortable with somebody that we bring in with the expertise of folks like yourself at the Founders Group, you and Melissa and Joe.
Well, I want to thank you all at RetireRate for having me here today. It was an absolute pleasure to speak today, and thank you very, very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, and we're gonna wrap up here. I'll give you guys a couple minutes left, back to your lunch. But there's another survey, right? I know you guys talked about the survey, Jeff, through the Founders Group, but there's a survey that Sharon put in the chat and then also should have sent out earlier today in an email to, there she goes. She's popping it up now. So that's there for you guys. And then a reminder to mark your calendars. December, we're going to be back in person for the third series for the Business Succession series. December 18th, back at Nevillewood at 3 p.m. So mark your calendars right before Christmas and the holidays.
Yes, sir.
Join us. Chris, that's going to be a special one, right? December 18th. Come on.
Yep. I'm going to have them decorate for us. Just for us. So I'll have a big Christmas tree. I'll make sure there's some eggnog. It'll be good. It'll be a good one.
Yeah, make sure everybody comes. Hey, bring a client or two or a friend or two or whatever, because we're going to have a good time. And at the Christmas, we're going to call it a Christmas.
I'll put Dawn in a ugly Christmas sweater.
That'll be great.
And a Santa hat.
And the Santa hat.
I remember the Santa hat.
All right. Hey, thank you guys all for your time. We sincerely appreciate you. Hope you found this information helpful, and we'll have a recording out there too if you want to go back through it. So all the best. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.